The Republic of Sudan, Africa's third largest country by size, has been ravaged by war for the past 11 months. The conflict between the Sudanese armed forces and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, erupted on the 15th of April. The RSF, held by Mohamed Hamadan Dagalo, and the army led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan had shared power with the civilians after the 2019 overthrow of the former strongman Omar Al-Bashir. And in 2021, the army and the RSF had joined hands together to stage a coup. But relations soured between the army and the RSF over the planned integration of the paramilitary RSF into the regular army, an internationally backed political transition plan. Since the fighting began in the middle of April, it has resulted in the displacement of over 8 million people. It has left the capital city Khartoum in complete ruins. It has precipitated a humanitarian crisis and also triggered the ethnically driven killings in Darfur. Now, the most significant advance against the RSF paramilitary, the Sudanese army on the 12th of March claims to have recaptured the headquarters of the state broadcaster in Omdurman. Now, the RSF had held the headquarters since just after the fighting erupted in the middle of April last year. Our next report gets more details.
The Game of Thrones in the strategically located and agriculturally rich Sudan took a major turn this week. After 11 months of intense civil war with the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, Sudanese army achieved a symbolic breakthrough on Tuesday by recapturing the headquarters of Sudan's radio and television in Omdurman, a city across the River Nile from capital Khartoum. Interestingly, despite taking control of the headquarters last April, RSF had not been able to transmit from it. State television and radio had continued to broadcast pro-army content from Port Sudan. Tuesday's seizure is a major victory for the Sudanese army because the RSF were using it for military operations. Ever since the fighting broke out in mid-April, the army and the RSF have battled for control of Khartoum and the nearby cities. United Nations Secretary General on the 7th of March had urged the warring parties for a ceasefire during the holy month of Ramadan.
It is time to silence the guns and raise the volume for peace. In just days, the holy month of Ramadan will commence. So from this chamber today, I'm making an appeal. I call on all parties in Sudan to honor the values of Ramadan by honoring a Ramadan cessation of hostilities. This cessation of hostilities must lead to a definitive silencing of the guns across the country and set out a firm path towards lasting peace for the Sudanese people. The values of Ramadan must prevail.
Despite the calls for a ceasefire, intense fighting has continued unabated. Sudanese army, reliant on air power and heavy artillery to counter the RSF's infantry advantage, ended up deploying drones in Omdurman in an attempt to regain lost ground. United Nations estimates that because of the conflict, nearly 25 million people, or half of Sudan's population, is in need of aid.
Available food is not enough for us. We have corn, but we don't have the money to grind it. And we don't have the money to buy cooking utensils. We can't buy onions or meat. The food that we have been given is not enough. The situation is difficult, and here there are no jobs.
The situation prior to the conflict was grim, with about a quarter of Sudan's population facing acute hunger. The deteriorating security situation has only imperiled the lives of thousands trapped. Both the warring generals Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and Hamadan Dagalo have been positioning themselves as saviors of Sudan and guardians of democracy. In a country which has experienced only brief democratic interludes, this latest conflict has not only diminished any hopes of a transition to democracy, but has created a humanitarian crisis which is only worsening by the day.